What's up, creeps, and welcome to the Let's Talk Horror channel, where on this one I'm going to be reviewing When Evil Lurks, the new movie for 2023, out now on Shudder. So make sure you go and watch this movie before you watch this review, because as usual I want to talk about my very honest thoughts on this movie, and to do that I have to talk about everything that happens in the movie. So go and watch the movie, and then if you feel like it, come back and hear what I think about it. But this is a psychological horror all the way from Argentina, and it is, straight off the bat, one thing I will say is absolutely mental. And it is also a film that you have to very much so mentally prepare yourself for if you have the opportunity, because if you're like me, I didn't really know what I was going into with this. I hadn't watched the trailers or anything like that, and I knew very little about this movie because it just wasn't on my radar. I didn't know anything about it. I hadn't seen that it had dropped until everybody online was saying how good it was. And if a film is universally getting good reviews, and all the horror fans out there saying it's their favourite film of this year so far, well, of course I'm on board to go and watch this movie. And I'm really glad I did, and I want to get into why. So let's get into the review for When Evil Lurks. So when I do these reviews, I try and be as constructive as I possibly can. Normally I'll give you my good bits and bad bits, overall conclusion, but when films like this come out, it makes that really difficult because there is very little bad bits. That's how good this film is. I have very little complaints or bad opinions or anything that I can think against this movie. That's the honest truth. So it's easier just to go into a natural review about it. And to start that off, you can go into stuff like the aesthetics. They brilliantly use this beautiful Argentinian landscape as part of the character of the movie, as well as the actual people within it. It is a brilliant landscape, a brilliant look. I like the fact that they don't completely desaturate the colour of the movie to enhance that feeling of tension and dread, which they do in a lot of movies. They desaturate it a lot. In this film, they keep those colours up, make it feel way more real. Also, that helps you give a little bit more hope to what is happening within the story and the idea. But we all sort of, if you've seen it, you know where that goes. In regards to performances, absolutely fantastic. I know that sometimes trying to be able to follow a story in a different language, which is what a lot of people can find difficult, and I can see why. A film like this is fantastic because it's so emotional, this film, and it's so driven by the tension and the dread and the story itself, that you don't necessarily have to have this complicated script that you're having to watch what the subtitles every single second. You can sort of make out what is going on and then check in on those every single bit to go, every now and again to go, okay, well, this is what's happening, this is what they're saying. Because the performances are so strong, they lead this film into telling you and informing you of the emotions and what is happening. So performances wise are absolutely fantastic. Really strong performances, especially from the lead. The amount of emotions that he has to go through is fantastic. So well done to the entire cast on this. The sound, yeah, it's fantastic. In fact, it does sound really good, but that will probably be one of my only other critiques, is that they don't necessarily use it to its advantage. It sounds great and it does a really good job, but there's nothing that stands out to you to say, okay, well, they're using the sound to add the tension, or they're using the sound to create fear and so on like that. Like a lot of films we saw recently, Talk to Me do that, some of the best I've seen for a long time. And this film didn't quite have that, but it still sounded really good. Like, it wasn't a negative for the film whatsoever, because like I said, there wasn't many negatives at all. And then one of the main things that I really like it, or there's a couple main things I really like it, is that the unexpected violence. And I know it always sounds so weird to enjoy violence, and that's not what you mean by it. It's the shock factor. It's the thrill value that it gives you, not in a good way, but when it's so unexpected within this movie, it happens so often where you do not expect the level or height of violence that they go to in this movie. From seeing a kid's brains getting eaten, from seeing a kid that gets mauled by a dog in an expertly crafted scene, to seeing somebody shoot a goat, and then the instant somebody shoots a goat, they get shot, and then the person that shoots the person who shoots the goat ends up putting an axe in her own face. The imagery is absolutely insanely good in this film in regards to creating that shock, that fright, that factor of fear, where it's like anything goes in this movie, and they will take it to the lengths that they need to tell the story and to shock, but not necessarily in a way where it's pretentious. Like, and I'll talk about that once again when I get to talking about the film that I didn't like from last year that sort of reminds me of this film. But in this film, everything is purposeful. And that you can see is a prime example within the scene where you have the guy goes into his ex's house and there's a dog there. and the dog goes up, sniffs his clothes straight away. As a watcher, as a viewer of the movie, you already know what's going to happen. And then you're also like, well, how does he not think about this sort of stuff? But then at the same time, you're like, well, the character's rushing around. He's trying to save his family. He thinks he's doing the right thing. But he's sort of, unfortunately, he's let it all here, even on something like his clothes. And that scene where the dog is sitting next to the girl and it feels like it lasts a lifetime and you know exactly what is going to happen, that is expertly crafted. That is people who are making movies know what they're doing. They're building that tension, they're building that dread, because you know that you're about to see something that you really do not want to see. And then they do it and they show it all, and it's absolutely insane. And as I said, when you've got the ex walking down the street and you know, when you don't see her for a bit, she steals the kid, and then she's walking down the road with holding him, eating his brains. It's just, this film goes to places that I haven't seen for a bit, or if I have, it's very on very rare occasions. And to say you like it isn't necessarily what you mean by saying that you like it. You don't like it because you like it. You like it because of how it makes you feel, because you're like, oh, okay, well, this is horror. And that's another thing I will get into. So this film really does tick all the boxes, which is absolutely mental. But some of the things that I absolutely, truly love about it is how the whole film is so ambiguous. And I'm not just talking about the ending. I'm talking about everything and what it is. And I love how every single aspect of it is ambiguous. You don't really know anything or much about the characters. For example, the main character, well, you don't know why he's, you know, they've got a restraining order on him. You don't know what his past, and you don't know why he's trying to make up for it so much, because, you know, whether he's hurting or not, or whether he thinks it's the right thing to do. It's all very ambiguous. You don't necessarily even know too much about how all of this started and how there's less of it. Was it a full-scale invasion of these possession and there's only a few now? And once again, it leads into the fact that you can create a new movie or a sequel or a prequel of how it all started. But either way, it's very ambiguous. And then the ending itself is once again a very ambiguous one, because it all ends and it doesn't end nicely. And that leads me into the point that I was trying to make about this film and a previous film of 2022. And that is a film, I did a review on it, so you're more than welcome to watch that to see how much I hated it. But there was a film called Speak No Evil of last year. And that film I could not stand. The reason I couldn't stand it is because it was purely a film that was leading up. Nothing really happened, and it was all leading up to a finale that was purposely made to shock, but not in a nice way, in a way that makes you feel like shit. And that isn't making a movie. I don't want to watch a film that makes me feel like shit, where nothing else within the movie, positive or anything like that, has happened whatsoever. This film, When Evil Lurks, is the type of film, or is made so it's done right. This film is made right. Do you feel like shit at the end because it's all gone to pot, and you can, so your brain starts wandering and going, okay, well, that's it now, because they haven't stopped it and it's going to keep going and keep going. That makes you feel like crap. And then the events of what happens in the film, where the kids have been killed and everybody's getting killed, and you know, it's not a nice feeling that you're left with at the end of the film. But the way that this film is crafted throughout, this isn't nothing happens and then it's an ending that's shocking and makes you feel like crap. This is a journey on a character who's trying to constantly redeem himself, and he's on this journey of redemption, and nothing works for him. Everywhere he goes is more chaos. He brings more chaos and more misfortune with him everywhere he goes. And that's a sad part of the story as well, especially when it ends the way that it does, where there is no redemption for him. It's only got worse. So you do feel like crap, but you've enjoyed your journey to get there in a way because it's so expertly crafted. And that's the difference between a film like this and Speak No Evil, which was just shit. So yeah, so as you can tell, I didn't like that film, but this film, as you can tell, I absolutely loved it. I recommend this film 100%. Prepare yourself mentally, as I say, before you go in and watch this film, because it can be a tough watch. You do sit there and you feel like you're sinking into your seat because of the events that's happening and the imagery that's on screen and how shocking it can be at times, and you're like, fuck, you know, that's a tough watch. But then that's what makes films like this. And this, for me, is like a film that is a definition of horror, where, and like you had in, you know, when you had the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that film is such an unsettling film. It makes you feel very uncomfortable when you're watching it because of what you see on it. And that is exactly how this film made me feel. It made me feel uncomfortable. It was unsettling to see everything that was happening, and it was also unsettling to see somebody who's trying to redeem himself. He's on this journey and then it just doesn't work, and it just goes tits up, and it gets even worse than it ever has been for him at the end. But as I said, what a fantastic movie. I can see why it's on so many people's lists of favourite film of 2023. Is it mine? To be honest, I don't know. It's something that I've got to think about big time before we get to the end of the year and I do my sort of Let's Talk Horror Channel awards. But for now, as I said, this film's available on Shudder. Make sure you go and watch it if you haven't. If you have watched it, then let me know in the comments. What did you think about When Evil Lurks?